All right, what's going on, my friends? It's now 3 o'clock. Trailblazers finish up their three-game road trip tomorrow in New York against the Knicks. Tip-off scheduled for 4:30. Our coverage begins with Blazers game day at 2:30, right here in your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Casey Holdahl, Trailblazers reporter and insider, is going to join me in a couple of minutes here on the Rip City Drive. Bad news for the Blazers. Dewap Reef has a stress fracture in his foot. He underwent successful surgery this morning, but he's going to miss the remainder of the season. Super Bowl 60s 1 week from Sunday. Seattle favored by 4.5 over the Patriots. Mike Vrabel says he's not concerned about Drake May's health after he landed on his right shoulder in the AFC title game. And Ravens' new head coach Jesse Minter says he's looking forward to creating a bond with quarterback Lamar Jackson. Rip City Drive is coming up next. Casey Holdahl, and then I'll talk football with Alex Brink at 3:20.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
Don't wear your old team's gear in this facility. That's disrespectful. That would be like your lady that you have currently wearing her ex stuff. How you feel about that? She's sitting up there with a shirt on that has her ex name, while you taking and feeding and booing her up. That's how I feel about that when I see you come into the cafeteria, you eat our food with your last teams on it. Obviously, if you want to stay there, you should have stayed.
Me and Liv, we left that agreement. Everybody was happy with it, and they understood the situation that I was in. The 23rd, I was released, and then called Tiger right away. Then that process got the ball rolling.
Playing 82 games in the 80s and 90s is not the same as playing 82 games in the 2020s. It's just not. The way we play, the level of pace, the level of the speed that we're playing at, it's a different game now. It's a totally different game. You know, it's a lot of soft tissue injuries that's happened now because of it.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
All right, not too often we get a chance to do this, but we're going to kick the show off today with a guest because he was kind enough to make some time for me on his current road trip. He's in New York with the Trailblazers as they get ready to take on the Knicks tomorrow at Madison Square Garden. Casey Holdahl is coming up on the Rip City Drive. Casey, how's your time in New York, my friend?
Chad, thanks for having me, man. It's good to talk to you. It's been going great. Obviously, New York is a great city, and we stay in very nice places that are in very nice neighborhoods. So it's always nice to get to the East Coast in general because, we only come out here once a year. And as West Coasters, I don't spend a ton of time out here. But when you come out on the road, it's usually a good time. It'd be nice to see some wins. But outside of that, it's been a pretty good trip. It's obviously been incredibly cold everywhere on this trip.
Yeah.
But it hasn't snowed since that first time in Boston. So while you do have to pay a little bit more attention to your footwear than generally you do because New York, Boston does a great job of dealing with the snow. D.C. does a terrible job of dealing with the snow. And New York does a decent job of dealing with it. So you can walk out of the hotel, and you can generally walk around on the sidewalk without stepping into a freezing cold puddle. But I have had to traverse some of those kind of mountains of ice that form like where the sidewalks are at, and particularly where the crosswalks are at, which the last thing I'll say about that, it's always so weird to me that like sometimes they'll clear one corner of the crosswalk and you can walk very easily through it, but then the street you're walking onto or through, that side hasn't been cleared out. So you have to like step over 1.5 feet of compacted frozen ice in order to continue your journey. But no complaints. It's a great city. Team wish they were playing a little better right now, but other than that, it's been good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Great to hear. And Knicks and Trailblazers tomorrow tip-off at 4:30 here on Rip City Radio 620. You cover this each and every year. The trade deadline is right around the corner now. So how do you view the trade deadline, and what are your thoughts going into it for the Blazers, who are in a good position because they're under the luxury tax? They don't have to make something happen, but, of course, will always have their ears open to potential deals that can be made.
Yeah, obviously I think there's been an uptick in the amount of rumors, or at least the amount of chatter that you've been hearing
Yes.
because of, I would say, some of the other guys in the league who have maybe, made it known that they wouldn't mind maybe doing something different. And I think people look at the Trailblazers and they see a team that has a lot of assets, has a lot of young talent, has and is also improving and is maybe looking to make a deal on their own at some point in time. I don't know if the Blazers are up to that point. Chad, kind of my standard approach to the trade deadline is just to assume that something's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I could see some small things happening here. And that's the other part, too, is you always assume that maybe there's going to be some small things here and there because, I think obviously, there's a story out today. Unfortunately, WAP has a broken foot. He's done for the season. You got guys like Caleb Love and Sidy Sissoko who are on two-way contracts who are coming up on their 50-game limit. So, and there's obviously a lot of interest in keeping those guys on the team. So, if something presents itself there, that would make some sense. Again, I've not heard anything, but you just kind of look at the roster and look at what they might need or where they might be going at. And you can kind of, maybe assume a few things. You're exactly right, too, about the money piece as well, Chad. They're not a team that has to, make a move to get under the tax. So that also gives them, a little bit of leeway as well. So, and I also think for the Blazers, they're in a great spot where, they're playing some pretty good basketball right now, and they're already improving as a team, and they feel like, next season when they get guys like Damian Lillard back, and hopefully if they're able to have a run of good health, which they did not have this year with guys like Scoot and Matisse and Drew all going down for extended periods of time, I think there's a feeling that hey, if there's a good deal out there for us, we will absolutely do that. But also we don't necessarily feel like we need to go hard on anything because we already really like where we're at. We already feel like we're improving, and we'd like to see kind of what this team can do when everyone is healthy and on the court at the same time. So it's also nice that from that perspective, if another team knows you need to make a move, they're going to give you a deal that's kind of crappy because they know that you're kind of up against it and you might have to do something you wouldn't otherwise do. The Blazers are not in that situation, so they can be discerning, they can be picky, and they have, like I mentioned, a lot of assets, both in terms of draft assets and in terms of talent. So, I think they're in a really good spot, and it wouldn't at all surprise me if they did make a move at the deadline. But I think they're in a enviable position, which is that they don't have to make a move at the deadline, and they still are improving. And I think they still feel like they can make a run this season if they can just get everyone back on the court. And if a deal presents itself, then hey, we'll consider that then.
We're talking with Casey Holdahl, Trailblazer insider and reporter. My main reason for optimism is this, and I know that you see it so closely because you're around the guys, but you go back to last year, you were there for the exit interviews when Joe Cronin and Chauncey Billups were talking, and they both said that, with our internal development, we may have that next star player on the roster right now. And when people hear that, I think a lot of fans maybe roll their eyes and say whatever, but look at Denny Avdia. I mean, look at what he's done this year. And the most exciting part, Casey, is that teams are now game planning to stop him. And they can't stop him. He's still getting to the free throw line. He's still creating for his teammates, and he's running things that are very complex, and he's excelling. That, to me, tells me that he is not only is he a star, but he's continuing to improve, and he's still young at 25 years of age.
Absolutely, Chad. You're exactly right. And the funny thing about that is that I don't know that they even said that really thinking about Denny Avdia, because you could say that about Shaedon Sharpe. You could say that about Scoot Henderson, who, had everything we heard about Scoot is that he had just a great offseason. Mm-hmm. And, it's always a bummer when guys get injured, but it's especially a bummer when you've heard a guy who is young and is improving, really made a lot of progress and just hasn't had a chance to show it yet. So it's a really good point, Chad, because, it ends up, Denny Avdia, who I think, has obviously taken that next step this year, is going to be an all-star, or at least he damn well better be announced as an all-star on September 1st, and is, again, to your point, still improving, still getting better, and still young at just 25 years old. And then you talk about a guy in Shaedon who has really made a lot of progress and has stability, from getting that contract and has made a lot of progress. And I think they're still obviously working with him in terms of kind of shaping his game up. But another player who you feel like is really just kind of scratching the surface of what he can do in the NBA on both sides of the ball, a guy who I think we've talked about a little bit this year, but is becoming a much better defender than we've seen in seasons past. Yeah. Obviously, really excited about getting Scoot out there and practice today that he's coming back around, and the hope is that he's going to be able to return to full contact practice or sometime soon, and maybe even return to lineup sometime in the not too distant future. That's great news as well. So I mean they have players on this team that are still improving and can become the kind of players that you would want to go out and get in trades because you feel like those are the kind of players you need in order to have success in the playoffs. Like they already have a couple of those guys, and they have a couple more guys they feel like could mature into that. So that's great if, they hold on to those guys. And then, it's also, it's always the thing that coaches kind of talk about this time of year when players start to get a little antsy about the trade deadline, which is like, hey, like if you're a good player, there's always going to be interest in you because every team wants good players. And I think there's, a lot of guys on this Blazers team that I think throughout the NBA have a lot of credibility and are viewed as, young up-and-coming players. So I think the Blazers are in a really unique and great spot to either kind of, stay the course and get better that way, or, maybe kind of pursue some other options and improve that way as well. So it's really starting to come together in Portland. I really truly feel that, Chad, and I don't think I would have I wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago. They were still putting things together, but it feels like the work that Joe Cronin and his staff have put in over the last couple of seasons is really starting to get to a point where you can really see kind of where they're going and feel really optimistic about their opportunities to become a much better team here in the very near future.
Yeah, no question about it. The other thing, with Donovan Clingan, I don't know if you've noticed this, but it looks like to me in year number 2, we've seen the improvement, but it looks like he's more willing to kind of express himself, show his personality, like his toughness. Like I've seen him get into it with a few guys, when he's wrestling for rebounds and not afraid to tell someone to F off when necessary. Like I like that he's starting to come out of his shell a little bit in year number 2 with the improved play, but also, really showcasing his energy and his toughness. I just love that, man. It kind of, everything about him just reeks of being a winner.
Yeah, and that's something this team needs, too. Like it is a good group of guys, but you need someone out there that's going to kind of mix up and be a little nasty and kind of be the guy that, the other guys, the guys in the other team are going to go to their friends on your team and be like, what's that guy's problem? Like, you need guys like that. And particularly when they're big and they're centers and they play the way that Donovan plays, like that also like gives you a little bit of a boost that I think you need as a team. You got to have that edge, and Donovan has it. And you're exactly right. When you're a rookie, particularly when you're a young rookie, Donovan, I think entering the league as a 20-year-old out of UConn, like you got to sit back and kind of survey the situation a little bit, and I'm thinking about a guy like Jeremiah Fears, who is like, a young player who seems like he's kind of getting into it with guys every single night on every single team. And it's like, there's something to be said about that, but I think you're probably better off surveying things and seeing kind of how things work, learning from your vets, learning from the guys in your team, and then not necessarily like, again, if you're the kind of guy that wants to get into fights, hey, do what you got to do. But I think there's something to be said about knowing when to kind of become that player and when to bring that kind of intensity and even outside of intensity, physicality, and, this probably isn't the best word for it, but violence, the idea of like bringing like something that's going to be painful for somebody else on the other side. Like that's part of the game. Like it is a physical game. You want to play physical, particularly when you're a guy like Donovan Clingan, who has the size and has the willingness and the mentality to be kind of a roughneck kind of player. Like that helps in the NBA. Like you can't get punked in the NBA and survive. Like it doesn't work. And so you need to say it with your chest sometimes. And Donovan Clingan is a guy who's always willing to do that. And yeah, it can be even in small kind of moments throughout the game where it's just like he's going to needle you, like, and he's going to be physical, and like that elbow is going to be out a few more inches than it might otherwise be. And, those are all parts of the game where you have to learn how to play that way. You have to learn where that line is at and how to stay just on the right side of that line, because if you go over it, then, there's repercussions for that. But if you can toe that line and play on the edge and you're good, like that gives a team a particular look and a particular mentality that, again, I think you really need in order to have success. Like you can be a group of nice guys and be a team that is generally well liked, but you gotta have guys who can turn it on from time to time and can flip a switch and kind of, again, get mean when they need to. And Donovan is absolutely one of those guys, and it really gives his team something that a lot of other guys on this roster just don't provide.
All right, Casey Holdahl. He's in New York getting ready for the game tomorrow against the Knicks. Trailblazer insider and reporter. Casey, I appreciate the time, buddy. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
I appreciate it, Chad. We'll see you Sunday.
You got it, buddy. There you go, Casey Holdahl giving us a little update from the road. Trade deadline right around the corner, and the tip-off tomorrow with the Knicks will be at 4:30. Chris Burkhardt will have game day live at 2:30 right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. When we come back on the Rip City Drive, we'll talk some football. Our college football and NFL insider from E4 Sports, former Coug, Alex Brink, is up next. I'm Chad Doing. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. All right, former Washington State Cougar, and now with E4 Sports, he is our college football and NFL insider. Alex Brink is back on the show. So, Alex, on Sunday morning, I was pretty excited because Jarrett Stidham got off to a good start, had the big pass to Mims, nice touchdown pass to Sutton. They get the ball on their next drive, and they're moving into scoring position. 4th down and 1. They end up failing to get that, and then the game turned. Did you think the Broncos should go for it, but maybe run the football, go with a different play call? Should they have taken the points? What was your thoughts in the moment as you were watching that game?
You know, I'm kind of a traditionalist, I guess, to some degree. So my gut instinct, I remember when I watched the game, was wondering why Sean Payton didn't kick the field goal with a young quarterback. Not a young quarterback, an inexperienced quarterback, obviously in a huge game. I mean, points are at such a premium, and nobody probably could have known how bad the weather was going to get, I guess. But, you know, again, I think points are a premium. And so, you know, I would have wanted to see them take the points and really get off to, like you said, a really good start and put the pressure on the Patriots, frankly, against a good Denver defense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Again, because I'm older like you are, I'm more of a traditionalist, so it sometimes drives me crazy when I see coaches go for it all the time. But, you know, in Peyton's mind, maybe he thought, hey, this is our chance to jump on top of him and get after it. I wanted to ask you about the fumble. You know, Jarrett Stidham tried to throw the football away. It turned out to be a backward pass, and the Patriots able to recover that fumble. What are quarterbacks taught? Like, what were you taught, and what are quarterbacks taught now? Because we see a lot of guys do this in the NFL where they're holding on to the last moment, and then they'll try to flip it to a receiver nearby or just throw the football away. But what should quarterbacks do in that situation where they're facing pressure? And obviously you don't want to turn it over. What's the rule of thumb?
Well, my quarterback coach in college, who I have a ton of respect for, Tim Rosenbaugh, you know, a Washington State legend, played in the NFL. He used to always say, you never compound one mistake with another mistake, right? And so, you know, whether the first part of that is a mistake or just a good defensive play as far as, you know, having coverage or making it, making it hard on the quarterback, whatever it is, you know, you have to be really careful you don't make things worse. As we say, you know, when I'm coaching quarterbacks, the ball leaves our hand last, right? So we are responsible ultimately for, you know, what happens and where it goes. And so, you know, that play right there, I mean, there's a world where you just tuck it and you eat it, right? And so I think that's probably the idea. The hard part about playing quarterback that I can tell you nobody, you know, very few people in the world have experienced is sometimes in the midst of the heat of the moment, you just have these instinctual reactions that oftentimes work out really well, but sometimes they just don't. And, you know, that seemed to be one of those kind of reactions for Jarrett Stidham in the moment.
Hey, Alex, did you ever play in a bad weather game? I mean, where the conditions were just absolutely miserable and it was hard to throw the football, it was hard to see. Do you recall anything like that?
Boy, funny you asked that, Chad. As a matter of fact, I tell this story often to the young players I coach. My senior night at Washington State was against Oregon State in Pullman. Second to last game of the year. We were still in the mix for bowl contention if we win our last two versus Oregon State and Washington in the Apple Cup. And we had, when I say hurricane level wind and rain, like that's what it felt like. It was gale force winds, sideways rain. I was wearing, you know, like those wristbands, like kind of those wristbands quarterbacks wear, like the sweatbands. Yeah. And they got so wet that when I threw, they would fly off my hands. And there was like 12 people in the stands because it was Thanksgiving break, right? You know, like when that game falls, so nobody was there. It was awful. And I threw 6 interceptions. I can confidently say 5 of them were my fault. 1 of them wasn't. It was a Hail Mary at the end of the half. It was probably the worst football game I ever played. It was definitely the worst weather I've ever played in also. So as you can imagine on senior night, not the way I wanted to go out. I was fortunate to have one more game after that against the Huskies, my last collegiate game, and got to throw the game winner and threw 5 touchdowns in Husky Stadium. So it all ended well, but boy, that was a rough game, and it was hard to throw. We kept throwing because we were losing. It was not fun.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is like a lot of the guys on the Broncos roster, these young players, many of them grew up in Florida, so they had never seen snow, let alone play a football game in it, right?
Right. Right. And I will tell you, I've never played in a snow game. It's something I've always wanted to. I had always wanted to do. I went to school in Pullman. I played in Canada for 5 years. I had some really cold games. Never got a snow game. I always wanted it. And then I'm watching that game, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want that. I would not have wanted to play that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of debate. I don't want to see a football game that's marred by the weather. Now, I still think teams in their own cities should determine what type of home field advantage they want. But I'm a proponent of the Broncos with their new stadium, with their very rich owners, to have a retractable roof. That way, if you know that there's a threat of heavy weather conditions, and even Greg Penner mentioned this in his press conference yesterday, that had they had a retractable roof, they probably would have closed it, right? So at least you put yourself in a position to have better success, because even if you're used to it, I just don't see how you get better football in those type of conditions.
Yeah, you certainly don't get better football. Again, it's kind of fun as a fan for the theater of it.
Yes, yeah, great theater.
Other than I had to hear Tony Romo talk about the quote-unquote conditions for an hour and a half. But other than that, it was, it's not good football. It's not what the game, right, is supposed to be. And there can be inclement weather and there can be whatever, but that was too much, right? And I think about, was it like a Patriots Giants or something like that? A few years ago was similar, or maybe Bills, where it was just snowing like crazy and super windy, and you just can't do anything. And so you want to find the middle ground there. So I think the retractable roof idea at certain places would make some sense.
I'm glad you brought up Tony Romo. I've been railing on him quite frequently for an extended period of time because he drives me crazy. But I wanted to ask you, because you're a broadcaster, you're on the call for the Washington State games. I'm really blown away. I think Troy Aikman is terrific, and he's willing to share whatever's on his mind. And I think Tom Brady has made a tremendous leap from year one to year two in his work on Fox. As a broadcaster, what's your take on Aikman and Brady and the job they're doing?
Same as you. Aikman's always been good, and he's had a lot of reps at it. He also it seems to come natural to him. I mean, some of that is when you play for the Cowboys, and he was always kind of at the forefront of he's always at the forefront of that team, obviously, always a dynamic personality. And then, again, he had a lot of reps, and now he's kind of the guy. I think he's fantastic. I think Brady is a good example of, people think something's maybe a little easier than it is. Right. And just you can walk into a booth and call games because you played you're one of the greatest of all time quarterbacks. And that's just not the way it goes. Right. There's as you know, there's mechanics to it. There's things that happen that you have to react to if you don't have experience, a million chemistry with your partner, a million things. And I think Tom Brady, wasn't very good in year one. And as a competitor, right, I think he went to work and was like, you know what, I'm contractually obligated to do this for another 10 years or whatever it is. So I better figure this out. And he did. He's fantastic now. I think he does a great job providing kind of personal anecdotes. He's really aware of the play and what's happening. He's not hypercritical of guys. He kind of understands that football's a hard sport. And I think that's an important distinction, right, when you're calling games. And so I think those two guys do a really nice job.
You know what was amazing to me when he pointed out Jackson Smith and Jigba and his shoulder lean or shoulder tilt, and how he doesn't, it's the same at all times, so you never really know where he's going on his routes. I had never thought about that. Yeah. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's such a football, it's kind of a footballism, right? We talk about pad level, or we talk about lean and pad level and what it means and what it looks like. And, it's fun as a football guy and a broadcaster to hear that and be, he's bringing that to the masses in a way that they can really digest, right? He had the clip that kind of went viral where he was talking about throwing the ball in the wind and, your hand placement, how you hold the football. And, I think for a lot of people, they would have never thought about, the way they hold the football impacts, kind of the nose angle of the ball. And then when it's windy, what happens to the ball? So, I think all of that is super insightful.
Yeah, no question. All right. You've had a chance to work with Sam Darnold. Take us back to your time at Elite 11. What was your takeaway from Darnold at the time?
Well, the Sam Darnold story is great because, he was a really talented multi-sport athlete in high school. So he didn't do a lot of the, kind of the extracurricular stuff. So he wasn't highly recruited, right? Not a lot of people knew about him. And he came to an Elite 11 regional in Southern California, blew the staff away with his athleticism and his ability. And then it was like, we kind of extended a finals invite that most people didn't expect. And after that, his recruitment really took off, and obviously it landed at USC. And, he's a good example of a guy that, kind of when you're under the radar but in your development, you're always focused on you and your process, how that works out for you. And it's funny because that's what's happened in the NFL too, right? I mean, he's very focused on his process. He doesn't get caught up in the outside noise. He's what's blown, and I think I would love to pull some tapes from our conversations about Sam Darnold over the last 5 or 6 years. I've always believed Sam Darnold is a top tier NFL quarterback, right? He goes to a couple awful situations his first few years in the league with Carolina and the Jets, and it's just even then he showed glimpses, right? And then he goes to Minnesota and he's fantastic, and they want to move on for some unknown reason, because they thought they drafted a quarterback in the future. I thought that was a terrible decision, right? And he lands in Seattle with Clint Kubiak, who basically is the same play caller as Kevin O'Connell, if not better, and a great defense. It was kind of a no-brainer that he was going to have success this year, and I was surprised more people didn't expect that to start the year.
Yeah, the most ridiculous football take I heard before the season was that Geno Smith was a better option and quarterback than Sam Darnold, and the Seahawks were going to suffer because of it. Not only did they get him, Alex, but they got him on a cheaper price, and he's been ultra productive. So it's the process then, his process in combination with getting with a better franchise to be able to really showcase what he can do.
Yes, 100%. And that's it's for quarterbacks when you can kind of focus on you and you can stay there and not get caught in some of the outside noise. You get in good situations, you maintain your confidence, and that's the way. Imagine what he went through in Carolina and with the Jets, how easy it would have been for him to lose confidence, and he never did. And maybe that's a credit, honestly, the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell and Clint Kubiak to kind of get him to that spot, right? But I certainly think the credit goes to Sam Darnold for everything he's been through.
Well, I really like him. What was great about that game against the Rams? It's not like Matthew Stafford played a bad game, but Darnold played his best game when they needed him to the most. And I just thought the play calling was creative. Even late in the game when they're trying to run out the clock, the balls to be able to put him on a naked boot to throw the pass, I was like, wow, that's awesome, man. Darnold rose to the occasion.
No, he really did. And it shows you the confidence they have in him, right, throwing in that situation. I think just kind of leaning into his strengths. He throws great on the run. He's a good athlete. I don't know how you feel, and well, you probably don't want to hear this, but arguably, that felt like the Super Bowl to me, right? That's two really good football teams in Seattle and the Rams, and it's too bad that game was in that moment, because I would love to see that again. Honestly, let's go for round 4 or whatever, it would be.
It was a great game. Here's my advice to all football fans: you don't want to lose your starting quarterback before a conference championship game. That's pretty much what I've come down to. It's like, because I know with Bo, they probably win the game, and so I get robbed of that experience. But that's sports, man. That's part of the beauty of sports, is that you can, you literally can go down the next play, and you never know. Nothing's guaranteed, and that's part of what makes it great, right? So, oh, my goodness. But just your first thoughts. I don't want your predictions. We'll get to that next week. But, what are some of the things matchup-wise or game-wise with the Patriots and Seahawks that when you first thought of the matchup that come to mind?
I'm really excited to see, Vrabel and McDonald coach against each other. I think the NFL for a long time has been looking for kind of the next wave of coaches. Obviously, you had a little bit of the McVay tree with McVay and Shanahan, and then McDaniel and LaFleur. Though the jury's still out, obviously, on those guys. And so, you were kind of waiting. Obviously, Andy Reid's been around forever, and you got Sean Payton. It's like, who are the next guys? And to see Vrabel get this second opportunity, I guess, right, with now the Patriots and to have success, and then McDonald, I'm really excited about that. I think those two guys are the future, are part of the future of what the NFL is going to be. I also look at two teams that are have a chance both to be in these prime eras. So if you think about it, you talked about Darnold kind of on the cheap. I don't know his contract length and how that works, but Seahawks have this great defense, young offensive core, right? Where do they go from here? The Patriots, Drake May, you got him on a rookie contract. You've got some incredibly talented young skill position players on offense, and then relatively young defense. Same thing. How long are they going to last? So those are kind of my thoughts about, are we seeing another run in both these franchises kind of being quote unquote dynasties, or at least go on a little bit of a run here?
All right, I want to finish with this, and I appreciate your insight. Very bizarre situation in Denver where Sean Payton had a press conference, and then Greg Penner the next day had a press conference, and then out of nowhere, Bo Nix, who's on IR, and you rarely hear from a guy who's on IR, decided he wanted to have a press conference in regards to his ankle situation. We'll start with Payton and what he said after the season was over about Bo and his ankle. Take a listen to this.
What was found, though, a condition that was like predisposed right at that, where they always find a little bit more when they go in, and it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. So, because when you look at the play and you're trying to evaluate it, he said, the doctor, operating surgeon, said that this was going to happen sooner than later.
All right, so I heard that. I didn't really think much about it. And then yesterday, out of nowhere, Bo puts together a press conference and wants to meet with local media in Denver. Here's what he had to say.
Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good. I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, because I don't, he doesn't really even know that. But I think it's going to be good, to get back, get to work, start from ground zero, work from the bottom up, get back to training. Nothing really that concerns me, nothing that scares me going forward, like I'm, injury prone or anything. This is one of those just inconvenient football plays. Can't necessarily avoid anything in the future, but I feel really good that my body's going to be in good shape.
All right, so how I heard that when I listened to Bo's comments is that you have a quarterback who is on a rookie deal, and obviously my guess would be his agent heard those comments, and he's like, hey, we don't want anyone thinking that you're injury prone or that this is going to be an issue, especially when you've got that second deal coming up here in a year that you can start negotiating on, so you need to get out in front of this. So a bizarre situation, but how do you read that as a quarterback, Alex?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to it. There's definitely that part, right? Rookie deal. He's an older quarterback. He was in college a long time. Those things are going to be a factor in his negotiations for his second deal. So it's important that those are addressed up front. I also think there was real question marks about why Bo Nix was running the football late in the game and what he was doing in that situation,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I had that thought.
Potentially the play where he got hurt. And again, knowing Sean Payton a little bit, and although he's a fantastic football coach, that sounds like a CYA, right? A cover your you-know-what, of it was going to happen regardless of if I ran him in that situation. When I could have just handed the ball, off. And, that is a little bit par for the course for Payton. So, I think it's both, right? I think the reason the comment was said was probably because of some public-facing criticism around why Bo Nix was toting the rock at the end of the game, and an answer to that, getting ahead of that answer, while also probably some of the contractual posturing, like you're saying, the business side of it, and then Bo saying no, we're not going to do this. I'll share my own narrative about my health, as he should.
Yes.
That is not by any means the head coach's prerogative to do it, but not a surprise from Payton, in my opinion.
Yeah, because when Bo says that he doesn't really know how many surgeries I've had, that's not true, right? Like a team, if you are going to draft a player and pay them big money to be quarterback for you, they would have access to all the medical records going back to when he was young. So the team would know everything about everything in terms of every surgery he's ever had, right?
Yeah, and so would every other team that
Yes.
would see him in free agency and all the things. So I think it's more of that, franchise quarterback kind of being hey, why are we having this conversation now?
Yes.
Sort of thing. And again, you can, coaches and players can have professional coach-player relationships without having close personal friendships. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some version of that.
All right. Alex Brink, former Coug, now with E4 Sports, is with us here on the Rip City Drive. And right now, E4's baseball, off-season training, hitting, pitching, field lessons, camps, classes. You've got everything for the baseball player.
Yeah, we sure do. Both sides of the river, too, east side and west side, over off Allen Boulevard in Beaverton, 6,000 square feet, 4 cages, space to take ground balls, do pitching lessons. We got Rapsodo technology to check your exo velo and make sure you're doing things right and building the right way, along with obviously we've talked before our strength and speed training that goes into your skill development. And then on the east side over in Milwaukee, same thing, 11,000 square feet, multiple batting cages. We've got great instructors, played at a high level, coached at a high level. So if you got a young athlete that's into baseball and wants to get better, check out the eForce Baseball Academy. Both locations open throughout the week for lessons, camps, clinics, all sorts of programs for development, ages 7 all the way through high school.
All right, Alex Brink, former Coug. Hey, Alex, I appreciate you, buddy. Enjoy the weekend, and I can't wait until we talk predictions and everything next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Chad.
You got it. There's Alex Brink. Love that. Now, how about that? Bo Nix coming out and saying, wait a second, there's nothing predisposed. And if you're Bo, you're like, wait, what the bleep is going on here? I played like 60 consecutive games. I started 2 straight years with no issues at Oregon. And I started every single game of my rookie season and every single game of my second season. I've played 37 of the possible 38 games. I'm not injury prone. And it could be a case, too, where Sean Payton just maybe being a little bit too open, a little too loose with the information he gave away. But if you're an agent for a player and you hear the coach say that, you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We need to change the narrative on that just a bit. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Casey Holdahl and Alex Brink. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Well, look at it this way, Seahawks fans. You'll be able to enjoy Super Sunday without Tony Romo on the broadcast. I don't want to make Alex Brink uncomfortable and start really unloading on Tony Romo. But even Brink was like, He leans in on Aikman and Brady. I'm impressed with Tom Brady. And I don't even like Tom Brady, the player, but I love Tom Brady, the broadcaster. All it took was 1 year, and then he really started to dive in and do the work. And he's an adult professional broadcaster. He doesn't need medication like Romo. He doesn't talk over the top of Burkhardt. None of that. He lets Burkhardt do his job, and then he slides in and does his job. And he's getting better by the game. Tony Romo, now I know a lot of people early on were like, oh, Tony Romo, he's predicting plays. He's doing a heck of a job. I never bought into that. I don't need some guy predicting the plays for me, and I certainly don't need someone that's hyped up on sugar or drugs or whatever the case may be. And I think, you remember that report, I think it was a couple of years ago, they had like a CBS intervention for Romo to try and, pull in the reins and get him back under control. And it's not working. It's getting worse. Hey, Jim, it's snowing. Jim, the conditions are really bad. Jim. Shut up, Tony. Please stop talking over the top of Jim Nantz. And can CBS please find an alternate broadcaster to step in? If you got to have Romo with Nantz, if Nantz loves Romo that much, then at least have a guy on hand who can slide in when Romo really starts to go sideways during the course of any given game. How many times did he yell about the snow? He was like just going on and on about how the conditions were bad, but yet at the same time offering no insight as a former player on how teams should be dealing with a freaking blizzard. None of it. He just keeps rambling. And then people have to mute the game. You can't listen to Jim Nantz because you don't want to hear Tony Romo, and he's not providing anything to the broadcast. And then you flip on the NFC title game, and Tom Brady's just operating like like the Hall of Famer that he is. I don't know. Romo drives you crazy. And what's funny is like you watch a game, there's certain broadcasters you just like, I can't deal with that. I'm not going to do it. And there are certain guys like that in the NBA too. All sports have them. The lesser of the two Van Gundys. Jeff was the good brother, and then he's got his brother Stan. That guy has got nothing but diarrhea flowing at all times. Yeah, he's terrible. I can't stand his voice. I'm just not a fan of Stan Van. I'll have to put together new rankings. But Romo right now, the worst. Van Gundy's right up there. Oh, well. Jim. Hey, Jim, it's snowing. Gee, Jim, there's a blizzard. No insight, no offerings of how to operate in that type of weather. But he sure pointed out that there was a blizzard going on about 20 times in about 10 minutes. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Big thanks to Alex Brink and Casey Holdahl. You can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528, 88528. Or you can jump on board and be a part of the show at 503-248-0620. Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's now 4 o'clock. The Trailblazers finish up their 3-game road trip tomorrow in New York against the Knicks. Tip-off is at 4:30. Our coverage will begin with Blazers game day at 2:30 on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Bad news for the Blazers today. Duop Reif had a stress fracture in his foot. He underwent successful surgery this morning. He's going to miss the remainder of the season. We got Super Bowl 60 1 week from Sunday. Right now, Seattle a 4.5-point favorite over the Patriots. Mike Vrabel says he is not concerned about Drake May's health after he landed on his right shoulder after being tackled in the AFC title game. Ravens new head coach Jesse Minter says he's looking forward to creating a bond with quarterback Lamar Jackson. More of the Rip City Drive with Chad Doing coming at you right now. All right, here are some gems from Tony Romo. Just the way he says gem makes my skin crawl.
And it's Caliendo with the catch, who had been eligible on that line as a receiver 2 of the last 4 plays.
Jim. Right there, you got 3. And you talked about it. This is the best tackling team. They don't miss tackles. She was wearing the Cowboys cheerleading outfit. Yeah. You saw that coming, didn't you? You said, I think she's going to go with a little cheerleading outfit tonight. And I was like, wow, it's pretty good.
What do you think we're going to see?
I mean, she looks amazing, right?
You know, you never know what's going to happen
wonderful.
Here.
Who doesn't like Dolly Parton?
No, she's absolutely an American treasure. That's for sure.
Never
touched the grass, a catch.
All right, thank goodness we don't have to listen to that during Super Bowl 60. Oh, Tony Romo. So bad. So bad. And the problem is because he's on CBS, the majority of Bronco games are on CBS. This year he was on an inordinate number of Bronco games, like 5 or 6 of them. I don't need that in my life, and neither do you. But Tom Brady on the Super Bowl, I'm here for it. Give me that, especially a guy that understands the big game and what it's all about. But I love what Alex Brink had to say about Sam Darnold and the way that he's been able to work his way into the position he's in right now. You know, when you're drafted by the Jets and you're a quarterback, there's a good chance that you're going to be tossed to the curb after 2 or 3 miserable seasons of ineffective play. And it's not because you're bad at the game. It's because the franchise that drafted you is terrible at everything. Fan support, fan interaction, building a football team, hiring the right coaches, having a front office that's not filled with morons. Like, they can't do anything right, the Jets. So when they draft you, you know that you're going to be screwed up. And then you went to Carolina, had another bad experience by what at the time was a poorly coached and poorly ran franchise. And then all of a sudden you wind up with Kyle Shanahan. And there are 2 things we know about football now. If you are a young quarterback and you wind up with Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, the chances are after they rehab you that you're going to become a viable quarterback again. Those 2 guys are quarterback geniuses. Really good. Now, again, I use the word genius loosely because for as many of these coaches that are supposed geniuses, their use of analytics and decisions when it comes to 4th downs and when to kick field goals, when not to, like, not exactly brilliant. And then the clock management. How can you be a genius and have no idea how to manage the clock at the end of a football game? And if you're so smart, why don't you hire someone that can help you with clock management or game management? It just drives me crazy for these geniuses. But Sam Darnold wound up in a spot where he could be rehabilitated, and then he goes to Minnesota and works with another very good quarterback coach and Coach O'Connell. And then look at him. Has a monster year. The Vikings, for some puzzling reason, decided to move on from Darnold and draft J.J. McCarthy. That decision looks really bad by the moment, and it's getting worse. And the Seattle Seahawks go out and make a play on Darnold. Now, at the time, they had Geno Smith. And look, I respect, don't get me wrong, because I respect Geno Smith. He went through the same process that Sam Darnold did. Drafted by the Jets, basically ruined, and then had to fight, scratch, and claw until he got another opportunity to be a starting quarterback. And he overcame a lot. But he's not as good as Sam Darnold, nowhere close. And yet, all the analytic nerds and a lot of people would have told you differently before the season began. What are the Seahawks doing? Why are they giving up on Geno Smith? They're going to go to Sam Darnold? That's not an upgrade. Well, I knew it was an upgrade because I've seen Geno play. You don't have to be some type of football scout sometimes to know who can play the game and who can't. And Sam Darnold's been great this year. But again, his process of being able to tune out the noise, as Alex said, continue to work on his mechanics, and then somehow maintain some level of belief and self-confidence through being destroyed by the Jets and the Panthers to get to a point where he's at now is impressive. And again, Brink thinks he's an elite quarterback. I don't know what he is. Is he a top 5 guy? No. Is he top 10 in the NFL? Probably not, but it doesn't matter. He's a really good quarterback who's been terrific this season. He's been great in the last 2 years, Minnesota and Seattle, and he's led his team to a Super Bowl. What's even more remarkable, well, 2 things. One, as we mentioned the other day, his grandfather was Dick Hammer, who was a USC athlete star himself, went on to be an actor, and was the Marlboro Man. That's tough. Unbelievable. And who's your grandpa? Oh, he's Dick Hammer. Oh, okay. That's cool. I mean, if there's one name that you want as a guy, like that is a good name. Yeah. Excuse me, I've never met you. What's your name, Mr. Hammer? What's your first name? It's Dick. Dick Hammer? All right, good for you. Well, that's his grandfather. And then he's also going to become the first USC quarterback to ever start in a Super Bowl. That's pretty baffling with the great quarterbacks they've had come from there, including Carson Palmer, who was probably, in terms of draft prospects, the best of the best. So he's going to start in the Super Bowl, and the Seahawks are in a great position to win it. So I love that type of story. Sam Darnold, his perseverance, the way he's been able to play and really become a playmaker. Now, Clint Kubiak, someone I've got great familiarity with because of his connections to Denver. And his dad, Gary, who was a backup behind John Elway for years, was an offensive coordinator working under Mike Shanahan in Denver. And then Clint, much like Kyle Shanahan, just grew into the role and has become a great offensive mind. I thought he called a terrific game on Sunday against the Rams. And it was an aggressive game plan that showed confidence in Sam Darnold, who needed that type of game. High-scoring affair against the Rams, you would have thought that favored the Rams. And Matthew Stafford was terrific. He's a great quarterback, but it was Sam Darnold who got the last laugh, made the big throws, and protected the football. He did what was necessary, as he has throughout the course of the year. And I just give him credit. I love what Mike McDonald has done. You know, the Seahawks are just in a great position with great leadership. They really are. And John Schneider has done a great job. You give good people more power, and usually good things are going to happen. And Schneider's done a great job in the draft. They've done a great job of acquiring talent, and they found the right pieces, and they got the right coach. My guess is Baltimore is probably a little sad that they let Mike McDonald walk out the doors. They probably got a good hire in Jesse Mentor, time will tell, but Mike McDonald's been great. And now the Seahawks are knocking on the door for another championship. And let's see here. This will be their 4th Super Bowl. They've got a title. They should have 2, but Pete Carroll butchered that one. And now they get a chance to grab another one. So it's great. The Seahawks are in a great position. Now, as a Seahawks fan, I would not discount or, just brush off the Patriots like that's not a problem. You don't want to do that. They are well coached. Mike Vrabel is one of the best in the game. Drake May has been terrific in his second season. And he's a quarterback that's mobile, and he's not afraid to take shots down the field. He's an aggressive quarterback, and he's mobile. You know, the Patriots in that second half or throughout the course of the game against Denver, they had issues moving the ball, but Drake May, like great players do, found a way to pick up first downs with his legs. When everything else wasn't working, he found a way to make a play and get it done. He also scrambled on a naked boot to get the final first down of the game that won the game for the Patriots. And their defense is really good, especially on the defensive line, the interior. And they've got a couple of bruising backs. Now, I think for the Patriots, the reason why I'm not going to judge them too hard on this run to the Super Bowl, their playoff games, they played three of the best defenses in the entire NFL: the Chargers, the Texans, the Broncos. Like outside of the Seahawks, you're not going to find three better defenses in the NFL. So they're going to be well equipped to deal with the defensive unit that Seattle puts out there on the field. Also, the games that the Patriots played in, Chargers, Texans, and then the Bronco game, they were all, what that average in those three games? Like 0 degrees Fahrenheit, bad weather, cold temperatures. Both teams are going to have a better chance to really open things up in the Super Bowl because they're going to be playing in good conditions and good weather down in Santa Clara. So I do think the Seahawks, I guess the best way I can describe the game would be this, when I look at it with my first take, is that the Seahawks, in my mind, have more pathways to victory in the Super Bowl than do the Patriots, meaning they can win the game in a variety of different ways. They can win it in a high-scoring affair with Sam Darnold. They proved that against the Rams. They can win a defensive battle, a low-scoring game, because we've seen them do that, like the finale against the 49ers of the regular season. They can win with special teams. They had a huge special teams play that got them back in the game and a chance to beat the Rams in that classic up at Lumen Field that allowed them to get home field advantage. Like, they can do it in a variety of different ways. The Broncos in the AFC title game had basically one pathway. Play great defense, check. They got that. And their quarterback, who was backing up, Jarrett Stidham, cannot make a mistake and turn it over. Well, he didn't accomplish that. He had 2 turnovers. That turned out to be the big difference in the game. So the Seahawks can win it with defense. They can win it with their offense. They can also win with special teams. They're one of those teams that, as I've told you before, Low Neal used to always beat into my dome that football is, you got 3 units. Defense is a third, offense is a third, special teams is a third. And the Seahawks have difference makers in all 3 phases. And when you can play like that, it just gives you different pathways to victory. And, of course, in a big game like the Super Bowl, I don't need to say it, but turnovers are going to be critical. Whoever wins the turnover battle is probably going to win the game. So I can't wait for the matchup. 2 well-coached teams, 2 very good franchises, and 2 great stories at quarterback. Sam Darnold, the journeyman, who's been able to overcome and put himself in a position to win a title, and Drake May, who is like the second coming for Patriot fans of Tom Brady. And the work that he's done as a young quarterback to get to this point and get his team to the Super Bowl. It's cool. But a lot of respect for both coaches. This should be one heck of a football game. Telephone number 503-248-0620. You can hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. We'll come back. I want to dive into this controversy with Bill Belichick not being a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I know a lot of people are upset. Tom Brady's commented on it. Troy Aikman has commented on it. Jimmy Johnson's been vocal. But there's more to it than people just having an issue with Bill Belichick. It's largely to blame. It's the process. And Mike Florio did a good job of breaking that down. So we'll hear about that next. And then also some of the issues that people do have with Belichick. All right, 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. Trailblazers, Knicks tomorrow. Tip-off at 4:30. Game day at 2:30 right here on Rip City Radio 620. All right, Chad Doing, Brendan Slaughter with you. Scotty Bethune chimed in on X, and he showed me a tweet that he sent out 3 years ago. And it just said, quote, "I wish my TV was smart enough to know to mute Tony Romo." Jim?
Jim?
Gosh, so bad. Another guy that's crazy is, it just amazes me that he said this because Emmanuel Acho played in the league. But this is some bad advice for any player in the NFL, and he's talking about the hiring of Todd Monken. And I hope that Shedeur Sanders is smart enough not to take this advice from Acho. This is crazy talk right here.
Because any expectation for Shedeur Sanders under Todd Monken, I believe, will lead to disappointment. There is nothing about Todd Monken as a head coach that should get you excited. As an offensive coordinator, you could say Lamar Jackson had an MVP season under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, you can make arguments under Todd Monken. Stetson Bennett won 2 national championships at Georgia under Todd Monken. But as a head coach, no. Nothing about Todd Monken as a head man gets me excited. I need to see who the offensive coordinator is going to be. That's what I need to see. But what I don't yet see, T, is like, how is Todd Monken going to command that locker room, command that group of men? And also, if I'm Shedeur or anybody in that locker room, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you won on an NFL level as a head coach? You're not even a head coach on an NFL level. So I don't even have expectations for Shedeur under Todd Monken because I believe any expectations I would have, he would not meet because why am I excited about it, T?
That's crazy. If I'm Shedeur Sanders, why am I listening to Todd Monken? Because he's the head coach. And the best way to approach your career is to work hard and learn as much as possible from as many people as you possibly can. It's very simple. And you don't have to be a football player to understand this. Raise your hand if you've had a boss that you didn't like or one that you didn't care about as much as you did or have another boss that you've had. And we've all been in that situation before. But I would imagine that you still came to work and went about your job. And you might have found that you can still learn some valuable tools from them. And I've had that in this business over the years. I've had bosses that were not great, bosses that I didn't like the way they dealt with a variety of different things, but I still learned from them. And I still respected them as my boss. I did not roll up on them and say, "Yo, what have you won in radio? What do you know?" That's crazy talk. So that's bad advice. That's not the right approach. That's not the proper attitude. And I would imagine Shedeur Sanders will not take that approach. I mean, come on. I mean, there's a lot of coaches that haven't won a championship in the sport that they're coaching in, but they're still doing a good job. I mean, Mike Vrabel has not won a title as a coach, but he's a pretty darn good coach. Same thing with Mike McDonald. He's only been there for 2 years. What does he know? What has he won? But he's got his team in the Super Bowl. I just think that kind of stuff's crazy. So there you have it. Emmanuel Acho with some bad advice. Now, I do want to break this down a little bit. A lot of controversy around Bill Belichick not getting the nod and will not be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But it's more to it than the voters, being buffoons or the voters holding a grudge against someone like Belichick. It comes down more to the process and the way that I think the Hall of Fame has responded to criticism in the past, maybe from Deion Sanders about letting too many guys in. But Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, kind of broke it down. Take a listen to what he had to say on the process and how that created issues for the Belichick vote.
It used to be when you had your pool of finalists, they would go through each one. Once we got down to the actual finalists, whatever it was, 5, 8, however many, it would be up or down. We vote yes or no. And if you got 80% of the vote, currently with 50 voters, you get 40, you're in. So Vahe Gregorian, who didn't vote for Belichick, wrote in his column, if it was just a straight yes or no for Bill Belichick, yes, I'm voting for Bill Belichick. He should be in. But they've created this weird thing, and I'll try to be as concise as possible to the extent that I even understand it. They have 5 people jammed into the same bucket. And for this year, it was Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, L.C. Greenwood, Ken Anderson, and Roger Craig. 3 from the seniors committee, contributor nominee, Kraft, coaching nominee, Belichick. 5 of them. You pick 3. You don't do up or down for each one. Every voter picks 3. And Gregorian's explanation is, well, for these 3 senior committees, this is their only shot. These guys, Greenwood, Anderson, and Craig, this is it for them. If they don't get in now, they're never getting in. So he voted for them because his thinking is Belichick's going to get in next year. So that process that has changed what used to be yes or no, up or down, that makes it harder for the finalists to get in. And it's why we saw a smaller class last year. Of whoever was in that bucket last year, Sterling Sharp was the only one who got in. They all should have a straight up or down vote. It shouldn't be this weird pick 3 out of 5, and then we'll see who gets 80%.
All right, so it's part of the process. You had a bucket of 5, and you have to choose 3. You pick 3 of the 5, and you had a couple of guys who had their last chance to get in, and so there were voters who voted for the guys who had their last chance to get in, not because they didn't think Belichick was deserving, but because they didn't want to pass on those guys with their last opportunity to get into the Hall of Fame. Now, Florio continued, and I think Dan Patrick asked him the question of, why or what would be some of the reasons as to why someone might pass on Belichick, and I think the answers are pretty obvious.
People don't like him. He's a jerk. Is that a surprise? But I think we need to be able to compartmentalize. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time, and the fact that he is a jerk, objectively speaking or subjectively speaking, my opinion, he's a jerk. Others have that opinion. That's part of what made him great. He'd rip into Tom Brady in front of the meeting room and scare the hell out of everybody, and they'd all, we better do our jobs or we're not going to have jobs. So he's clearly one of the greatest coaches of all time, and I think it's easy to find reasons. If you don't like someone, if you're looking for a reason, oh, it's Spygate. Oh, he needs to sit out a year because of Spygate. Or, whatever else they want to throw. Oh, look at his record without Tom Brady. Look at his record with Tom Brady. Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. Like, you can come up with any reason. And people just subjectively don't like certain people. And I think that when you have a unreasonably secret process where no one's allowed, it's like a papal conclave. I mean, come on, why isn't it transparent? When you take away transparency, people can hide behind all sorts of things, and then and you don't even have to vote no. That's one of the other problems with this process. Oh, I didn't vote against Bill Belichick. I just didn't vote for him. I never said no to Bill Belichick. So I think, and I'll defer to Armando, because he presented him and he told you yesterday Spygate seemed to be the reason. But I think it was just at least 11 of the 50 didn't like him, and so they sunk their teeth into anything they could to justify it.
Yeah, there you go. And that's going to be the downside when you are Bill Belichick and you're going to treat the media a certain way. I mean, some of those guys are going to have, an axe to grind. And Belichick was a pain. Grumpy, bitter, didn't want to answer questions. But it really doesn't matter because he won and was wildly successful. He is absolutely a first ballot Hall of Famer. But he's going to get into the Hall of Fame. I just don't worry too much about it. I mean, we live in a day and age where Barry Bonds, the greatest baseball player of my life, is not in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer. But Belichick will get in. But really, it's a matter of there were a few people that took issue with Belichick being Belichick and the fact that he is a cheater. I mean, we know that's fact with Spygate. And the rest was process, where they had to pick 3 of the 5, and a couple of those options were on their last chance. And so it's not that they didn't vote for Belichick. They just chose others because of the way the process is set up. But Belichick will be fine. I'm sure Belichick's probably very bitter because he cares about the history of the game and the importance of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and being a part of that. But there you have it. For me, I mean, the best coaches I've seen in my time, Bill Walsh, Belichick, Mike Shanahan, there's been a few. I've always put Parcells at the top of the list. I think in my lifetime, Bill Parcells is the best NFL coach I've ever seen. And that's not disrespect to Belichick. I just think that Parcells, for what he did and with the quarterbacks that he had, was remarkable. He won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants, one with Phil Simms, one with Jeff Hostetler. He took the New England Patriots with Drew Bledsoe young in his career to a Super Bowl, and then nearly got Vinny Testaverde there. But it was also Belichick who discovered and gave an opportunity to Bill Belichick. He groomed him and developed him. So I kind of give the nod to Belichick, but, the hoodie's right there. I think what Bill Belichick, his greatest strength in my mind after watching him, coach and lead so many different teams over the years, he had a unique way. There were a couple of different things. One, he was really good at looking at the players that he had and knowing what the best position on the team would be for that player so that they could go out there and make the biggest impact and have success. And then in terms of game preparation, no coach better than Bill Belichick in terms of preparing his team for situational football. What they would do if the weather was poor, how they were going to deal with certain teams and their punt protections, short yardage. Like his players were always prepared for every possible situation they may face on the football field. And then there have been ex-players who have talked about this, and I think this is very unique, but he would look at the upcoming matchup, and after a week of preparation, when he would meet with the team, he had a narrative, almost like a story for how that game was going to go. Was it going to be low scoring? Was it going to be a defensive struggle? Would turnovers be a key part of it, special teams? And he would kind of paint a picture in his players' minds of what the game they were about to play would look like so that they'd be better prepared. I mean, there's no one better than that. And the situational football was off the charts. And there you have it. And it is a talent, and it's very important, but being able to coach Tom Brady the way that he did, even though it caused fractures in the relationship, later into their time together, being able to coach and be able to coach your best player hard sends a message to the rest of the team that he's going to treat Tom Brady the same way that he treats me, that he's going to hold Brady to the same standard that he holds me. I think that's very good for the team. Now, Brady and Belichick started to butt heads over the course of time, but, they had a lot of success together. And you can't tell one story without talking about the other guy. It's very special. And it was Belichick who had the balls to bench Drew Bledsoe and go with Tom Brady when the injury happened. Many coaches, the majority of coaches, basically all of them except for one would have made that choice because he believed and saw something in Brady where he thought he was the best option for the team. And it turned out to be the right choice. And I think the biggest issue with Belichick was not his ability as a coach, but as he continued to have more and more control over, the personnel decisions and player acquisition, that's where the weakness really showed up. It's really hard to be great as a personnel guy and as a coach. It's really hard to put in the time necessary to run a football team and be a coach, and then be able to put in the time necessary to go over all of the prospects. And he was not good at drafting players later in his time with the Patriots. And that's okay. Most coaches can't do both jobs. So there you have it. Two other coaches that need to get in sooner rather than later that are deserving. Mike Shanahan, who won 2 Super Bowls as head coach with the Broncos. He also was, and you can see it in the game today, just look at the impact of Mike Shanahan and how many guys in the league are running his offense and utilizing his concepts and having great success. Namely, just to name a few, Matt LaFleur, obviously Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, the influence, Clint Kubiak, all those guys right there, all those teams right there having tremendous success, all are a product of Mike Shanahan and the way he did things. And they've kind of built off of that. It's a terrific tree. And then Mike Holmgren. Mike Holmgren was terrific with the Packers, won a championship with Brett Favre. He got the Seattle Seahawks to a Super Bowl, and he has groomed and prepared a number of great coaches. Andy Reid, John Gruden, and the list goes on. And the one thing that Mike Holmgren did with the Seahawks that, that he needs more credit for is that when he took over and started running the Seahawks, it was a great hire, by the way, but he changed the way that they do everything. And it was Mike Holmgren who went to Paul Allen after he had seen his players showing up to practice with like fast food bags. Guys were hitting like the Wendy's drive-through, the McDonald's drive-through, getting their, breakfast sandwiches or whatever on the way to practice. And he knew right away, like, we got to change the way we do business. We got to give our players more tools to work with when it comes to training, nutrition, everything, to make sure that we're going to put ourselves in the best position to succeed. And after that, that's when Paul Allen created that great football facility that sits off the lake up there close to Seattle. Where's it at? In Bellevue? Beautiful facility right there off the water, and I've had a chance to tour it and be a part of it. I was up there for the draft several years ago. It's an incredible training facility. It's an incredible setup. It's got everything that you could need nutrition-wise, training-wise for the players. And when they walk in, there's a gigantic cafeteria. It's really like my dream scenario. You walk in, depending on what position you're in, and you've got everything you need food-wise right there.
Sounds pretty awesome.
It's amazing. And Mike Holmgren was responsible for that. He's the one that went to Paul and said, we need this. We got to do it. And so he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And Belichick does too. Belichick's a great, great coach. Incredible success. No coach has been more successful than Belichick. But the truth is, when it comes to awards or Hall of Fames, and you've got voters, they're humans. And when you treat people like garbage for an extended period of time, some guys are going to not forget that. And they'll hold a grudge. I think it's more process in the way they could only pick 3 potential people on the list, but also these people that just got tired of dealing with Bill Belichick over the course of time and his grumpiness. And there might be some jealousy, too. The most successful coach of all time rolling around with a young hottie, that could be a part of it. But he'll get in. He's going to be fine. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. The Blazers, we're going to be back in action tomorrow. They're going to be taking on the New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden, and the tip-off will be at 4:30. And Chris Burkhart's going to have game day at 2:30. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then they're going to be back home for a game on Sunday. So the Blazers have been, very busy. We're past the halfway point of the season, but I've been very pleased with the overall production. Denny Avdia is a star. And it's pretty awesome that the Blazers are going to be squarely in the mix when it comes to postseason play. But Denny Avdia is great. Like, as a franchise, in order to be successful, like, you need to have a situation where you occasionally, knock it out of the park. You hit a home run. Denny Avdia was a home run. They got him for next to nothing based on his production now, and he's a big-time player. He's got the right attitude, and as teams continue to game plan for him, they can't stop him. It's amazing. All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can hit me up on the Rip City Radio text line, 88528. From the 503, Dick Hammer, dude, had to be pulling Mad Tail with that name. I don't know. My guess is he probably did not have issues with the ladies. But as Brendan pointed out yesterday, the sad part is I think all 5 who were the Marlboro Man died from smoking-related causes, correct?
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, too, because, again, it's one of those, Chad, you live life to your fullest, but I think the oldest one of that group made it to 71 when I was looking, so taking off some longevity for sure. But, hey, to say you were a Marlboro Man?
When was the last time you had a drag off a cigarette?
Oh, goodness.
Like,
college for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, college for sure.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Appreciate your time. You got the Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Rip City Radio text line is 88528. Great news for former Oregon State quarterback Sean Mannion. He's going to leave the Packers as quarterback coach, and he's now going to be the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And what a great opportunity that is.
Love it, Chad.
Now, have you had a chance to spend time around Sean Mannion during your time covering the Beavs?
Yeah, so he was. It was his senior year when I started to get going in the reporting game. I knew him before that when I was still just a young Beaver fan going to games and whatnot. Tremendous individual, and just how quickly, Chad, he's kind of risen up the NFL coaching ranks has got me kind of excited because you know as well as it can cut both ways. But in the NFL, you have, as an offensive coordinator, you have one good year where it's like, hey, you know, you're top 10 in offense, you're top 5 in yards, whatever it is, you're going to get head coaching looks. And to see where this guy is early in his coaching career, man, it's awesome. And just thrilled for Sean, man. I might have to pull for the Eagles a little bit this next year.
No, me too. And what a great opportunity that is with a team and an offense that's got a lot of talent. And, you know, I remember my times interacting with Sean. I always thought he was terrific to deal with. But more importantly, the people I know who know him, I mean, he's got a very good reputation, and he's worked his tail off to get to where he's at now in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a guy, too, that I think could kind of fit that new or the mold that we've seen be so successful with these offensive-minded head coaches because Sean was such a cerebral quarterback, just a guy that knew for lack of better terms, Chad, I don't think Oregon State's had a quarterback in his ballpark since he left in 2014. So this guy, I mean, he was great. I mean, I think he's still number 2 in Pac-12 yards all time. So, you know, he accomplished a heck of a lot in terms of statistics. He had a good football mind. And now I'm curious to see what's he going to do with Saquon and Jalen Hurts and maybe A.J. Brown, maybe not A.J. Brown. But, yeah, I'm intrigued. I'll put it that way.
All right, so Sean Mannion is moving on to Philly. He'll be the offensive coordinator. What a great opportunity with Saquon and Jalen Hurts and some good talent. You know, the roster for the Eagles, still one of the very best in the NFL, even though they came up short in the postseason with that loss to the 49ers. Also, good news for the Trailblazers. Our Trailblazer insider, Sean Hyken, reporting that Scoot Henderson has been cleared to participate in contact drills at practice and is in the final stages of his recovery from the hamstring tear that has kept him out since the beginning of training camp. So, this is what's really good for the Blazers right now. Number one, they're going to be a postseason participant, whether it's they grab one of the final playoff spots or they're in the play-in to earn their way in to the 7 or 8 seed. Maybe they can jump to 6, but they're going to be a postseason participant. So that's cool. But look at where they're at now. A couple of games under 500. They somehow, some way made it through the dog days with so many guys, 5 rotational guys out of the lineup. They did that because Denny Avdia. Now, the young guys who had a chance to play, namely Sidi Sissoko and Caleb Love, they made the most of their opportunities and showed improvement. But it was Denny Avdia. He is a superstar in this league. Now, how do I know that? Well, because teams are now game planning and scouting him, and they're trying to come up with plans to slow him down and stop him. And yet he continues to excel. And he's taken his game to a different level. That's what star players do. He gets to the free throw line at an incredible rate. Plus, keep in mind that the way he's had to learn and adjust over the last year of having so much responsibility with the basketball in his hands. I mean, he has really got a lot of complexities out there because he's having to attack and be the primary scorer, but he's also having to set up for his teammates. He's essentially their point guard, but wildly productive. He's really good. Denny Avdia is, not only is he a star player right now, but he's only 25 years old. What do you think the future holds for that guy? He's going to get better. So now you get Drew Holiday back. Jeremy Grant, who is really, you got to give him a lot of props. He has embraced his role this year. He's having his best season as a Trailblazer. And he's bought into what they wanted him to do, which is eliminate the mid-range game, be aggressive and attack the rim, which he's done, or shoot the 3 ball. So Jeremy Grant's been playing well. Drew Holiday's back, which is good. Dramatic improvement year 1 to year 2 for Donovan Clingan, who's now starting to showcase some toughness. And the Blazers are going to be able to finish the back half of the season with a more friendly schedule, but also healthier. Now, it's unfortunate news about Dwap Reef, who is going to miss the rest of the year after a foot fracture. But they do have Klingon. They do have Robert Williams III. And the team has done a tremendous job. You know, a lot of people are upset about the injuries that have gone down. But, you know, credit needs to be given to the training staff for finding the balance with Rob Will of how much rest he needs, how many minutes he needs to play. And they've been able to navigate that to where he's been productive throughout the course of the year and been available. And that's great. They limit his minutes. They don't play him in the second of back-to-backs. And when he's on the floor, you can see the benefit, the explosiveness, the hop in his legs. He's a smart basketball player. He's tough, but he's been wildly productive. So they've done a good job with him. But this team is going to win more games down the stretch based on the way the schedule sets up, and they're going to be a member, and they'll be participating in postseason type play. We'll see what that is. I have not looked at. Let's take a quick glance at the NBA standings right now. The Trailblazers 2 games under 500 at 23 and 25. They're currently 9th in the Western Conference. They are 3.5 games behind the Warriors, but they have the tiebreak on them. And right now, 5.5 back of the Suns, who are currently in 7th. So really, and the Blazers are going to compile. They're going to start stacking wins together. If you just take a look at their schedule, very easy to see. But yeah, they're going to be in the play-in at the very least. And I think they're going to be able to gain ground, depending on what happens at the deadline, on the Warriors and potentially the Suns, which would be cool because it'd be nice to get them. If they're in the play-in, it'd be nice if they get to host a game and play at Moda.
That'd be huge, Chad.
Oh, yeah, so good. All right, we'll keep things rolling. You're going to hear Alex Brink's comments, his thoughts on Sam Darnold and the work he's done with the Hawks this year. You can reach out to me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. You can call the show at 503-248-0620. I appreciate your time. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. Trailblazers and Knicks tomorrow, 4:30 tip. Blazer game day with Chris Burkhardt at 2:30. All right, it's now 5 o'clock. Chad here. What's going on, my friends? Bad news for the Trailblazers today. Duop Reef had a foot fracture repaired with surgery. He's going to miss the remainder of the year. But Scoot Henderson has been cleared to ramp up his on-the-court activities with contact and is one step closer, nearing a return to the lineup for the Trailblazers, who are going to be back in action tomorrow, taking on the Knicks from Madison Square Garden. That tip-off will be at 4:30. Travis Demers with the call. And Chris Burkhardt will have game day starting at 2:30 right here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Super Bowl 60 is 1 week away from Sunday. Seattle right now a 4.5-point favorite over the Patriots. Mike Vrabel said he's not concerned about Drake May's right shoulder after falling at it in the AFC title game. Ravens head coach Jesse Minter says he looks forward to creating a bond with quarterback Lamar Jackson. And Sean Mannion, former Beavers quarterback, is the new offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, little side note. I finished up, it was like 5 or 6 episode series called His and Hers on Netflix. I would recommend it. A shocking end to the series that I did not expect, so I would check it out. I'm getting a phone call right now from GOP polling. I think it's the first polling phone call I've ever received. There's no way in the world I'm going to answer that phone call. The great thing about cell phones now is that I get alerted on certain phone numbers that come in. And I love the phone calls that you answer and there's like no one on the other end. It's just silence. But a lot of times your phone will alert you now. It says possible scam or scammer likely. That's good. I need that. I just want to know how these people get a hold of your phone numbers and then start bombing you. Now, who answers their phone nowadays? Nobody? I answer the phone if I know who it is and I want to talk to them. But sometimes it's someone I know and I still don't want to answer the phone. So I just screen them out and I'll call them back later. Or what I love is when someone screens me out and then they shoot me a text. Did you just call me? Yeah. Yeah, you know I did. I don't know why you're sending me that text. I called you. You chose not to answer. Why are you sending me that text? Hey, did you call? Yes, idiot. You saw it come in. I love how these people act like they didn't have their phone in their hand, too. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. A lot of talk right now with the NBA trade deadline that is right around the corner. I do not expect the Blazers to make a trade for Giannis. I do not think that's going to happen. From what I've been able to gather from the people I have spoken with, I know that the Trailblazers are very happy with the development of their young core, namely Denny Avdia, who is emerging as a superstar in the NBA. That's been fun to watch. Shaedon Sharpe, and the way he continues to get more comfortable and productive. And he's showing right now that he's a keeper. Like, you're not going to let him go. That guy has got potential stardom written all over him. So the development of Avdia and Sharpe has been great. Now, my guess would be that coaches, front offices, they're never satisfied with the amount of data that they have. But I think one of the unfortunate things about this year with the injury to Scoot, and he's close to making a return, Sean Highkin reporting that Scoot has been cleared to participate in contact drills at practice and is in the final stages of his recovery from a hamstring tear. It's kept him out all year. So he's close to making a return. But the problem is you need more data on Scoot to really know who he is and what type of player he might become. He will return to action soon, but there'll be some rust to shake off. I'm just excited to see him back on the floor, showcasing his athleticism and getting a chance to run in this new attack. And the new attack, this new offense, the way they've done things this year has been very beneficial to multiple guys, including Denny. Clearly, Jeremy Grant's comfortable. Donovan Clingan, the team is really happy with his production in year two. The toughness, the rebounding, his understanding of body positioning. He's doing all the little things right, but now he's showcasing more personality, more toughness. Not afraid to mix it up and tell someone to bleep off when necessary. Bringing some personality to the floor. I always laugh about Donovan. he complains about every single whistle, every single call. He shakes his head or puts his hands up in the air. And I know that if Tiago Splitter were to go to the review monitor every time he signals for the review, the success rate would be like 0.1%. But he's great. Donovan Klingen's been awesome. His rebounding, his toughness, the rim protection, his overall development's been great. And I think if you look at the acquisition of Drew Holiday, they wanted to bring him in. Now, again, he missed a lot of time with that calf, but when he's been on the floor, you see why they brought him in. They thought he would be able to help them win now. He's taken a lot of pressure when he's on the floor with Denny because at times he can handle the rock, but he's also one of those guys that doesn't have to have the basketball in his hands to make an impact. So Drew Holiday's been really good. And they're also happy with the fact that the training staff has been able to find a balance with, Rob Will. How many minutes, no second nights of back-to-backs, just keeping him in a position where he can remain healthy and be able to contribute. So I think that part's been nice. So I guess what I would think is the Blazers, they're not in a position where they have to do anything. They're under the luxury tax, so there's no pressure to do something like right now. But they're going to listen. And they're going to remain, I would say the best word for it would be opportunistic. They will remain opportunistic, and if the right opportunity comes along to make a deal that they believe will continue to add to this team moving forward, they'll do it. I think what's going to happen with the trade market right now is that with Giannis wanting out and Giannis being a big piece, I think teams are probably going to freeze up for a moment to see how things shake out over the next week and to see what opportunities there may be to get involved and be like a third or a fourth team to get a deal of that magnitude done. Typically speaking, it's harder for teams to move large contracts in season than it would be during the summertime. But the Blazers are absolutely going to remain opportunistic. And I think what they're going to start to look for now, they've done a good job of building, the culture in that locker room and finding a group of guys that fit well together. I would say that the Blazers could be categorized as a team that has got togetherness. We see that on the floor. But now you can start being more skills specific. Finding players that come in and bring a certain skill set to the team that's needed and guys who can be a difference maker like that. So that's how I see it. No, I don't think they're making a move for Giannis, but I think they're going to remain opportunistic during the next couple of weeks and see what opportunities are out there. And that's good. But more importantly, just continuing to collect, data. I do think they'll have decisions to make on the two-way guys, Caleb Love and Sidi Sissoko. But the problem is, in order to make room for those guys and convert them to full-timers, you have to create space on the roster. And the question is, do they want to clip somebody off or buy somebody out to make that type of room? It's a very good question. What do you think, Brendan?
I think it's going to be an interesting, and I like your point, Chad, opportunistic, especially with Portland having such, I've seen so many things that say, because Portland has so much of Milwaukee's future, they could find themselves into this situation. But beyond that question I kind of have for you, because it's new for us, you mentioned Sidi and Caleb, obviously two guys very well deserving of deals. Could you see a world now with the situation with Duop, where maybe they look to waive Duop or, move on from him in some way to open up a roster spot?
That could definitely create an opportunity for them to do that. Personally, I don't see how they can finish out the year without at least one of those guys being a full-time contributor, because they're going to run out of time. And those guys have been, very critical to their success this year. Maybe the injury to Duop will create that opportunity. I also know that they've been very pleased with the work of Tiago Splitter. I mean, it's still movie-like. Head coach removed by FBI after game 1 of the season. That's bizarre. But yet Tiago, in the most unfortunate circumstances, has stepped in and done one good job. Probably the best thing that I think he's done is he's, kind of brought some calmness to the choppy waters, but the way he's gotten guys to buy in. Guys like Jeremy Grant, Donovan Klingen, Shaden Sharp, all the guys, he's gotten them to buy in and accept their role and play a certain way. Not easy to do that as a coach. What is it? Greg Popovich always said, role acceptance, always difficult. But Tiago's done a good job leading the guys, getting them to buy in, getting maximum effort, and you see the result. And he's done it with Denny Avdia and a group of, I'm not really sure what we have, but they've kind of developed over the course of time. The emergence of Sidi Sissoko and Caleb Love's been very pleasant. You don't expect two-way guys to make contributions like that before the year begins, and yet they have. But I'm excited about the second part of the season. Mostly just getting a chance to see Scoot again in this new attack, this new offense, getting a chance to see the guys get healthier and get a chance to play together, namely Holiday and Denny, Shaden Sharp, Donovan, kind of your key guys. And now we get to throw Scoot Henderson into the mix with his athleticism. It's going to be a fun team to watch down the stretch. And as they continue to get healthier and those guys come back, and then they get a chance to gel a little bit, they're going to play their best basketball at the end of the year. Right when you want to be playing your best basketball as you get ready for the play-in or the playoffs or whatever they're, going to be involved in. They're definitely going to be in the play-in. The question is, can they jump up and maybe grab one of those, playoff spots? Or are they going to have to play their way in through the play-in? We'll see. But they do like where they're at. But very pleased with the development of the young guys. And now it's just a matter of Scoot getting back on the floor and getting through some of that rust, and then we can see what he has to offer. The irritating part about Scoot is that the team was thrilled with his work during the course of the offseason last summer. He was ready to roll, and then he ripped up the hamstring. And this is not a minor tweak. I think, I mentioned this, but I think it was the way it was described to me, it was meat off the bone. Just thinking about that kind of makes my hands clammy. I've never ripped my hamstring off the bone. I just know that I don't ever want to rip my hamstring off the bone. That's painful. But they've been patient through the process to get him back to where he can contribute, and he's going to do that. But my main reason for optimism right now is that they found their star player. Denny Avdia is awesome. There's nothing about Denny I don't love. He's got the right attitude, the right approach. He works his tail off. He's very tough. He plays big minutes, and he's very productive on both ends. He is a two-way player, and he's getting better at a time when teams are trying to stop him. They're game planning against him. And yet he's still finding a way to get over. That's the mark of a good basketball player. Teams try to stop you, and yet they can't stop you, right? And in order to, rebound or, go through a rebuild process, sometimes you just got to strike it rich in the most unlikely of spots. Making that trade for Denny was a good trade at the time. It's turned out now where it's just so lopsided in favor of Portland, it's unbelievable. They got a great player who was on the most team-friendly contract in the entire NBA. And sometimes you have to get fortune like that to be able to really turn things around. And how many guys would want to play with someone like Denny Avdia? Two-way player, unselfish, very productive, and works within that team concept to set his guys up. You want to play with a guy like that because he's going to make you better. So I like it. I like where they sit. It's going to be fun. And I can't believe it, but we're already, past the halfway point in terms of games played. They've played 48 games. 23 and 25. And I projected 45 wins before the beginning of the year. And that's what I believe. I think they're going to hit 45 wins. All right, we'll keep things rolling. We're going to hear from Alex Brink next. His takeaway on Sam Darnold and that process for how he's gotten his team, the Seahawks, into the Super Bowl. We'll dive into that next. 503-248-0620. You can find me on the Rip City Radio text line at 88528. And Blazers Knicks tomorrow, 4:30 tip here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day at 2:30 tomorrow as they finish out the three-game road trip. Now, we're going to hear from Alex Brink, his thoughts on Sam Darnold here in just a moment. But I do want to discuss, this is kind of troubling. You know, the Broncos coming off a frustrating loss in the AFC Championship game because they didn't have their starting quarterback, Bo Nix. So that was a rough inning to the season, but a wildly successful season, one of the more enjoyable football seasons I've had as a fan, just watching the game, the 11-game winning streak, and, you know, the development of Bo Nix, who I'm becoming a big fan of. But we found out yesterday that Bo Nix is not a fan of certain things being discussed. And Bo Nix is one of those classic athletes where he doesn't want to say anything. And he will show up for mandatory press conferences, but he's not someone that's just going to share information. And he definitely doesn't want any details out there about any type of injury he's suffering from. He just won't talk about injuries. And I respect that. Now, Sean Payton is a coach that has no problem saying anything about anybody. You know, he cracked on Nathaniel Hackett and the circus show that was in Denver before he arrived. He's had no problems calling him out. He had no problems throwing Russ under the bus for his play or decision-making. He called Jacksonville a small market football team. They took exception to that. He was joking with one of the local reporters a couple of weeks ago, asking them, what do you know about getting downhill in the run game? And people thought he was being a bully. You know, Sean Payton just being Sean Payton. Well, he opened up about Bo's ankle situation, and this was a couple of days ago. Here's what Sean Payton said in regards to Bo's ankle injury that he suffered at the end of the game against Buffalo in the divisional round.
What was found, though, a condition that was like predisposed right at that, where they always find a little bit more when they go in, and it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. So, because when you look at the play and you're trying to evaluate it, he said, the doctor, operating surgeon, said that this was going to happen sooner than later.
All right, that's Sean Payton. Now, when he said that, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think there was an issue there. He didn't say anything shocking. He was just being open about Bo, which was weird from the standpoint that Sean, like Bo, doesn't say anything about any injury. And he lets you know at the beginning of the season, like, don't ask me, I'm not going to talk about it. But at the end of the year, when the season was over, he talked about Bo. And a lot of times coaches will do that after the season is over. They just don't want to give up any information before a game that someone else could use or maybe take or have an advantage over. Now, the weird part about the Bo Nix press conference yesterday is that, keep in mind, they had done their player interviews, and then George Payton and Sean Payton, the general manager and head coach, had their press conference. That was followed by, the next day, Greg Penner, the Broncos owner, who's done a heck of a job. Richest owner in the NFL, and the guy's been nothing but top-notch. They got a new stadium that's going to be built. They've got a new practice facility. The entire facility there in Dove Valley is being redone. Like, the Broncos are going to be top-notch in every single aspect of their operation. That's a good thing. They've got money, and they're going to utilize it to be the best that they can. Well, they set it up to where the players would have a day, 24 hours of their own news cycle. Peyton and Peyton had their cycle, and then you thought Greg Penner was going to have his own news cycle. But out of nowhere, Bo Nix decided he wanted his own press conference. And keep in mind, he's on IR with the ankle injury. So he's not going to – normally players, when they're on IR, they don't talk to the press. They don't discuss anything. They don't meet with the media. They don't talk. And you're under no obligation to do so, but typically teams don't make their players who are on IR available. And as I just mentioned, Bo Nix is a guy who doesn't want to say anything about anything, but yet he called the press conference. So what does that tell you? Well, that he had a message he wanted to get out. He called it for a reason, and that was because he had something he wanted to get off his chest. And this was shortly after the Greg Penner press conference, but here's what Bo had to say on the conference call with local media.
Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good. I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, because I don't, he doesn't really even know that. But I think it's going to be good, to get back, get to work, start from ground zero, work from the bottom up, get back to training. Nothing really that concerns me, nothing that scares me going forward, like I'm, injury prone or anything. This is one of those just inconvenient football plays. Can't necessarily avoid anything in the future, but I feel really good that my body's going to be in good shape.
All right. So Bo Nix came out and basically contradicted his head coach, Sean Payton. Now, I know a lot of people in the Denver area who cover the team, and the way the relationship has been described to me between Bo and Sean is they are a very healthy, like, married couple where they're in love sometimes. They will have disagreements at times, but for the most part, there's mutual respect, and they both have said really good things about one another. So I think it's a healthy relationship. And more importantly, there's a good give and take. Sean respects Bo and vice versa. And Bo's not afraid to give it back to his coach in certain situations. We've seen it happen in games before. But I think Sean likes that. He wants his quarterback to be fiery and stand up for himself. But here, and the thing that Bo said, that really caught my ear was like, I really don't think he should be talking about my surgeries because he doesn't really know.
Didn't have any predisposed issues. Man, my ankles were feeling really good. I don't think he really should share how many surgeries I've had in the past, to be honest with you, because I don't, he doesn't really even know that.
Well, that was interesting. The truth is, of course, Sean Payton knows exactly how many injuries Bo Nix has had. Any of these players who enter into the NFL draft where teams are looking at them, scouting them, and considering drafting them and investing a lot of money in them, trust me, they know everything about every single thing you've done. I mean, they hire, PIs. They do an entire background check. They want to know everything about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then they also want to know everything about the medical report before they invest large amounts of money into a player. So, of course, the Broncos were well aware of every single ankle surgery that Bo Nix has had. So it's not like Sean Payton was just making stuff up. He knew exactly what Bo's been through. So he knows. He knows about every single surgery and everything that's going on. Payton would have talked about that with the team doctors, everyone. I think this is pretty simply a situation where Sean Payton comes out and talks about Bo Nix, having a predisposed situation with his ankle, that it was just a matter of if or a matter of when, not if. And I think for Bo, I think he's protecting against a couple of things. Number one, when you question someone or when you say that an athlete's predisposed or has a pre-existing condition, it's almost like saying the guy's soft. He's injury prone. He's not going to be able to play. He's not going to be available. Like, players do not want that type of label. And Bo Nix would have a very good argument. He played every single game at Oregon, and he made, so far, aside from the game he did not play because of the broken bone in his ankle against Buffalo, he has started 37 of 38 possible games for the Broncos in 2 years. So he's basically had 4 consecutive seasons of being available for every game but one. And he's shown toughness. He had some back fractures in year number 1 as a rookie. He played through that. We saw him at Oregon be dinged up and played through that. He's a tough guy, a very tough guy. But for a young player, especially at the quarterback position, what's the big contract for an NFL player, especially a quarterback? Well, it's the second contract. That's where the big money comes from, right? It's contract number 2. So if you're Bo's agent and you're hearing Sean talk about his predisposed situation with his ankle, about multiple ankle surgeries, you don't want that information being put out there because you don't want anything being said that could cost your client dollars and cents when it comes to negotiations. And so that's why I think Bo tried to get out in front of it and made sure that everyone knew, no, my ankle's fine. It was a clean break. There's nothing predisposed. I'm good. And I've played 37 of 38 possible games. So my guess is the relationship is fine. My guess is Bo just didn't want all the details. Maybe Sean Payton was a little bit loose with his lips, but he didn't say anything completely out of line, and he would have certainly known. But I think that was more of Bo's agent saying, look, we don't want that stuff out there. You got to go out there and create your own narrative. It's your ankles. It's your injuries. You get out there and say whatever you want. But that negotiation for the second contract is massive because that's where the big-time cash comes in. All right, Alex Brink, former Coug. He knows all these quarterbacks because he works with the Elite 11. He's a big fan of Sam Darnold. I know you Seahawks fans are getting all geeked up right now for the Super Bowl, as you should. So I asked Alex about this transition for Sam Darnold. going to the Jets, they tried to destroy him. Went to Carolina, they tried to destroy him. And then he wound up getting a chance to work with Shanahan, and the rest is history. Killed it in Minnesota, killing it with the Seahawks right now, and he's coming off one of his best games in the history of his career in that NFC title game over the Rams. But Alex took us back to Elite 11 and what he noticed early on with Darnold that makes him a special quarterback.
Well, the Sam Darnold story is great because, he was a really talented multi-sport athlete in high school. So he didn't do a lot of the, kind of the extracurricular stuff. So he wasn't highly recruited, right? Not a lot of people knew about him. And he came to an Elite 11 regional in Southern California, blew the staff away with his athleticism and his ability. And then it was like, we kind of extended a finals invite that most people didn't expect. And after that, his recruitment really took off. And obviously it landed at USC. And, he's a good example of a guy that, kind of when you're under the radar but in your development, you're always focused on you and your process, how that works out for you. And it's funny because that's what's happened in the NFL too, right? I mean, he's very focused on his process. He doesn't get caught up in the outside noise. He's what's blown, and I think I would love to pull some tapes from our conversations about Sam Darnold over the last 5 or 6 years. I've always believed Sam Darnold is a top tier NFL quarterback. Right? He goes to a couple awful situations his first few years in the league with Carolina and the Jets, and it's just even then he showed glimpses. Right? And then he goes to Minnesota and he's fantastic. And they want to move on for some unknown reason, because they thought they drafted a quarterback in the future. I thought that was a terrible decision, right? And he lands in Seattle with Clint Kubiak, who basically is the same play caller as Kevin O'Connell, if not better, and a great defense. It was kind of a no-brainer that he was going to have success this year, and I was surprised more people didn't expect that to start the year.
Yeah, the most ridiculous football take I heard before the season was that Geno Smith was a better option and quarterback than Sam Darnold, and the Seahawks were going to suffer because of it. Not only did they get him, Alex, but they got him on a cheaper price, and he's been ultra productive. So it's the process then, his process in combination with getting with a better franchise to be able to really showcase what he can do.
Yes, 100%. And that's it's for quarterbacks when you can kind of focus on you and you can stay there and not get caught in some of the outside noise. You get in good situations, you maintain your confidence, and imagine what he went through in Carolina and with the Jets, how easy it would have been for him to lose confidence, and he never did. And maybe that's a credit, honestly, the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell and Clint Kubiak to kind of get him to that spot, right? But I certainly think, the credit goes to Sam Darnold for everything he's been through.
Well, I really like him. You know what was great about that game against the Rams? It's not like Matthew Stafford played a bad game, but Darnold played his best game when they needed him to the most. And I just thought the play calling was creative. Even late in the game when they're trying to run out the clock, the balls to be able to put him on a naked boot to throw the pass, I was like, wow, that's awesome, man. Darnold rose to the occasion.
No, he really did. And it shows you the confidence they have in him, right, throwing in that situation. I think just kind of leaning into his strengths. He throws great on the run. He's a good athlete. I don't know how you feel, and well, you probably don't want to hear this, but arguably, that felt like the Super Bowl to me, right? That's two really good football teams in Seattle and the Rams, and it's too bad that that game was in that moment because I would love to see that again. Honestly, let's go for round 4 or whatever, whatever it would be.
It was a great game. Here's my advice to all football fans. You don't want to lose your starting quarterback before a conference championship game. That's pretty much what I've come down to. It's like, because I know with Bo, they probably win the game, and so I get robbed of that experience. But that's sports, man. That's part of the beauty of sports is that you can, you literally can go down the next play, and you never know. Nothing's guaranteed, and that's part of what makes it great, right? So, oh, my goodness. But just your first thoughts. I don't want your predictions. We'll get to that next week, but what are some of the things matchup-wise or game-wise with the Patriots and Seahawks that when you first thought of the matchup that come to mind?
I'm really excited to see, Vrabel and McDonald coach against each other. I think the NFL for a long time has been looking for kind of the next wave of coaches. Obviously, you had a little bit of the McVay tree with McVay and Shanahan, and then McDaniel and LaFleur, though the jury's still out, obviously, on those guys. And so, you were kind of waiting. Obviously, Andy Reid's been around forever, and you got Sean Payton. It's like, who are the next guys? And to see, Vrabel get this second opportunity, I guess, right, with now the Patriots and to have success, and then McDonald, I think I'm really excited about that. I think those two guys are the future, are part of the future of what the NFL is going to be. I also look at two teams that are, have a chance both to be in these prime eras. So if you think about it, you talked about Darnold kind of on the cheap. I don't know his contract length and how that works, but Seahawks have this great defense, young offensive core, right? Where do they go from here? The Patriots, Drake May, you got him on a rookie contract. You've got some incredibly talented young skill position players on offense, and then relatively young defense. Same thing. How long are they going to last? So those are kind of my thoughts about, are we seeing another run in both these franchises kind of being quote unquote dynasties, or at least going a little bit of a run here?
All right, there's Alex Brink, his thoughts on Sam Darnold and the Super Bowl matchup between the Hawks and the Patriots. One other thing, in case you missed it, just absolutely awful advice. And if you're a young player out there, just know that this is not how you approach any type of situation with your coach in terms of your attitude and how you want to go about your business. And this guy that played, this is Emmanuel Acho on Speakeasy, basically saying, if I'm Shedeur Sanders, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you won on the NFL level? It's such a dumb approach and really just laughably bad advice. But take a listen to this. Like, he's dead serious, too. This isn't some type of joke or act. He's serious. And it's like the worst mindset you could possibly have.
Because any expectation for Shedeur Sanders under Todd Monken, I believe, will lead to disappointment. There is nothing about Todd Monken as a head coach that should get you excited. As an offensive coordinator, you could say Lamar Jackson had an MVP season under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, Lamar Jackson had 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions under Todd Monken. As an offensive coordinator, you can make arguments under Todd Monken. Stetson Bennett won 2 national championships at Georgia under Todd Monken. But as a head coach, no. Nothing about Todd Monken as a head man gets me excited. I need to see who the offensive coordinator is going to be. That's what I need to see. But what I don't yet see, T, is like, how is Todd Monken going to command that locker room, command that group of men? And also, if I'm Shedeur or anybody in that locker room, why am I listening to Todd Monken? What have you won on an NFL level as a head coach? You're not even a head coach on an NFL level. So I don't even have expectation for Shedeur under Todd Monken, because I believe any expectations I would have, he would not meet. Because why am I excited about it, T? Why? Because
Why? All right, that's just horrible advice. You need to learn from as many people as you possibly can. I mean, seriously. I mean, look at Seattle. They're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl and take on the Patriots to win a championship. What if Clint Kubiak and Mike McDonald won? What? Why should I listen to those guys? What do they know? Yeah, McDonald ran a defense, but he was under Harbaugh. Clint Kubiak's nothing without his dad. Why should I listen to those guys? What do they want? That's how dumb that is. That's really bad. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. 503-248-0620. Blazers and Knicks coming up tomorrow. That game will tip off at 4:30. Chris Burkhardt with Game Day at 2:30. And I hope you're enjoying your Thursday. You got the Rip City Drive. All right. Super Bowl 60 a week from Sunday. You should join me down at Spirit Mountain Casino. They're going to have everything set up in the event center. And I've hosted the Super Bowl down there for many, many years. It is one of the best possible spots if you're not at the game. In fact, let's go down there right now. Spirit Mountain Mike, who's always down at Spirit Mountain Casino. Let's see what's on his mind. Hey, Mike, my friend, what's up, brother?
Hey, thanks for taking my call there, Chad. Well, I hate to reminisce a little bit. That was pretty rough last Sunday. Just at the least, I feel your pain there. I think Peyton has to take some, responsibility. I thought I would like to have that 3 points before halftime. You know what I mean?
It was brutal. Yeah, it was brutal. They had their chances, and when you got a backup quarterback, you should probably take every opportunity you have to get points. They did not, and the fumble that led to the Patriot touchdown turned out to be the big difference. Brutal.
Oh man, yeah, that was. It always seems to happen when you cut for a commercial and you come back and you see that and you go, "What?"
I don't know what hapappened. What's going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyhow, yeah, that's basically what's on my mind. And one other thing, though, I'm glad to hear Scoot's getting ready to return to action. If you remember last year, he was given nothing, and he ended up winning that starting point guard position. And I look for him to do the same, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm excited. You're right. And what they've done is they were happy with his work during the offseason. He'll probably take him a few games to shake off some of the rust. But this offense was tailor-made for his skill set and what he can do with his athleticism. So I can't wait, man. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people have forgotten about him. But, man, just because he's been injured, I think the future is right ahead of him. And that's going to, I think, take this team to another level once he gets going.
No, there's no question. Will you be down there for the big game next Sunday at Spear Mountain?
Oh, Spirit Mountain Mike will probably be there.
I love it, buddy. All right, man. There you go.
Right on, man.
You're the best, dude. Spirit Mountain Mike right there.
Thank you.
And you got it, buddy. Love him.
Bye.
503-248-0620. Let's go ahead and talk with Eamon. Wants to talk 49ers. Eamon, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad. How you doing? First off, I wanted to say I initially started listening to sports talk radio while I was doing homework in high school. Listened to JT Brick, loved his show. Then he kind of stopped on national radio, got into Jim Rome show, learned about that lineage. He went in the first smack off, going to his show. Then I learned about your show, and then just recently I learned that you also kind of started with the Jim Rome show. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Super cool. I'd love to hear some of those songs that he sang on his show at some point.
Okay,
but,
I could do that. I still have them, and they're lurking around on Stucknut too. So yes, that was just having fun, man. And the good thing is Jim enjoyed it, so it was cool.
Hell yeah, love that. I've called in once or twice just to do the beef segment, but always a good time. But as a Niner fan, like this power plant stuff came out, and one guy's reporting on it, and I think some people say it's BS, some people say it's valid. Seems like more people are saying it's BS these days, but I just think the Niner fan, we want answers for all the injuries. It seems like those stats you can't really argue with. So like no trainers have really gotten fired. We just want answers, So
well, Eamon, what I think is to clarify so people know what you're talking about. From my understanding, the 49ers facility is located right next to kind of under a power plant. And so the 49ers are searching for answers to why they've had so many ridiculous injuries over the last few years. So they're funding a research study to see if there's any connection to the power plant and the injuries. That's what I heard. That's correct, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what you do in this situation is that, injuries, obviously it could just be a wave of, bad fortune. But I think when you're in the spot the 49ers are in, stop at nothing to try and figure out if it is the power plant, if it's not. You've just got to search for answers to try and put your team in the best possible position to be healthy because, it was the last couple of years, there's not been a team in the NFL like the 49ers who have been decimated by injury after injury. There was one point in the season this year, Eamon, where they had over $200 million in fully guaranteed money that was unavailable to play because of injury.
Yeah, it's insane. And, there was one of the players, I can't remember who it was. He said it would have been a landslide against the Seahawks. I don't know about that if everyone was healthy, but anyway, yeah, I hope, honestly, I hope the Seahawks don't win it on the Niners home field. Thanks for your time.
Well, hey,
man.
but Eamon, real quick, for the year, I would imagine you had to be thrilled with the success that Kyle Shanahan had based on the injuries, right? Like, you didn't expect them to get as deep as they did with the injuries, but yet Shanahan find a way to piece it together, and I thought Coach Saylor did a heck of a job with the defense.
Absolutely. It was, nobody thought, with all these injuries, we were like, all right, maybe we'll limp into the playoffs, and then we beat the Eagles at home. That was, can't complain, so.
But in teams,
it was a fun year.
in terms of rivalries, though, like, do you hate, as a 49er fan, is it the Seahawks that you hate more than any team right now?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Even though, as a Portlander, they're the closest team, you kind of appreciate that. And then they did, what they did a couple weeks ago. And it's like, no, I hate the Seahawks. So
I love it, dude. Hey, Eamon, I appreciate it, man. Number one, thanks for listening. I appreciate the support. I'll break out some of the Jim Rome songs for you in the near future. And I appreciate you.
Hell yeah. Love it, Chad. Thank you.
There you go. Appreciate that phone call. Yeah, someone sent me a link the other night because I think they were reminiscing. It was a link to stucknut.com, and it was one of the Magic Johnson parodies that I busted down in the show. That was pretty funny. All right, big thanks to our guests today, Casey Holdahl and Alex Brink. And tomorrow, no Rip City Drive because there's an early Blazer game. Chris Burkhart will have game day starting at 2:30. And then the tip-off with the Knicks will be at 4:30. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter for his time today. And you guys have a good night, and I will talk to you on Monday. Brooke Olsenday, I'm going to join the show on Monday as well. So I'll talk to you then. Enjoy your night, enjoy your Friday, and enjoy the basketball game tomorrow.